Hello, everyone. Today I would like to introduce the concept of functions. But before I tell you what a function is, I would like to motivate the topic and motivate the subject. Suppose now I want to print somebody's name and I want to say hello, this person's name, like that. Like, let's say Sandra, for instance. If I want to do that, I'm gonna print, and is here is doing something. It is installing some stuff. I don't know what it's doing. Um, but Okay. So now it's basically saying hello, Sandra. Suppose now I want to greet another person. And I want to say hello, Brian, like that. Brian, like that. So now we have the same thing. The only thing that is different is the name. Now suppose I want to greet another third person. Um, Hello, like that. And the person's name is Molly, like that. Um, all right, well, if I print um, and I get the third person. So, one thing that we want to get rid of um, is to get rid of these names that are already hard coded. We want to make our programs very flexible. So, instead of just hard coding these names, I would like to um, make him become stored in a placeholder where I can print the content of a placeholder, and we call the placeholder a variable. So this variable, we're gonna call it a name, and this name is gonna get the value from the input um, function that is already built in the Python language. And now I'm going to pass a message that says enter your name, like that. So if I enter my name like this, and I'm going to comment out all these guys. If I'm going to run, this guy is going to ask me what is the name, and the first name was Sandra, like that. And the program terminated. So what we needed to do is to put a print function here that says hello to whatever name that we're gonna enter, and I'm gonna be passing the the placeholder here for whatever name that I'm gonna enter from the keyboard. So if I run this one more time, I'm gonna enter Sandra, like that, and is going to tell me is going to print hello, Sandra. And if I want to print another name, then I'm going to have to repeat this thing again. I'm going to copy the content for another sentence, and I'm going to, this is going to be like name again. So I'm going to reassign um, the same variable here, a different value coming from the keyboard. And then I'm going to greet it. And then I'm going to do that for the third person. So maybe 4 people here. So, okay, 4 people will be okay. So if we run this one more time, I have the first message here that's part of the input function, and is asking me to enter the first name of the first person. So I have Sandra, and then it says hello, Sandra. And now I am on this sentence here. So the second name was Brian, like that. And it is greeting Brian. Very good. And what is the third name? The third name was Molly, like that. Oops. Molly, like this. And the last person that we are going, the last statement here that we have to execute, or is already now been executed, is asking me to enter another person's name, well, maybe Michael, like that. So imagine now every time I need to add a name, um, and then I need to get that name been accepted, then I have to repeat all these guys. I have to repeat them. I have to print them over and over and over and over. And as you can see, if I have 8 names, I have to do it 8 times. And if I have more, I have to continuously have to enter new names and new values all the time. And as you can see, it's becoming already very hectic when we're only dealing with a handful of names here. Um, that's why we actually have to think about Python functions. Okay, so what our Python functions are going to do for us? Well, the function is going to have to work with only with these content a single time only, and then I never have to write it again. So the only time that I actually need. Um, so suppose now I want to enter a person's name. I'm only gonna do that. I'm only gonna write that one statement a single time, and I don't have to repeat it over and over and over for any name or any value that is or any task that I'm going to do with the name. Um, so the function here is essentially a device. So a device that prevents um, repetition. Maybe we should say prevent tedious or laborious work. Laborious work. I don't know if I spelled it correctly or not, but you get the idea. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, if I want to define a function, if I want to define a function, I have to use a specific keyword. So the specific keyword that I need to use is the keyword def. So this is what I'm going to do if I want to define a function. Okay, and the function, if I want to give it, if I want to use it, because remember that we don't have to copy this over and over and over and over. The only thing that we need to do is to um, declare or define a device, and this device is going to be used over and over and over and over. I'm going to give you a really very good example here. Imagine um, I don't know. Imagine you every time you want to watch TV, you have to build a TV for yourself, so you can start watching it. But what might be making sense that you design that TV, and anytime you want to watch it, you plug it in. So this is the same idea here. We don't need to create a TV every time we want to watch it. We don't need to create these things every time we want to compute them, or we don't have to construct all these tasks many times over and over and over if we want to compute them. There are ways that we can make it modular. Modular means it's something that you can repeat, and you can reuse over and over. So now if I want to use something, I have to be able to call it by name. So here is the function name is what we need to call it, for what we're trying to do here. We're basically trying to print a name. Print name. Okay. So now we're gonna give it a name. And for me to be able to know that this is indeed a function, that's not a variable, I have to um, append these open parentheses, close parentheses at the end of the name. Not only this, but also I have a colon here at the end. And then inside here, I can do the task. So suppose that the task that I want to use is um, hello some folks. Hello functions. Here's what I found on the web. I guess Google Google is intercepting my lecture. Gonna have to put my phone on silent. Sorry about this. All right, so now we put the phone on silent. So now we actually created a function. So what we need to do now is, if we want to print hello function message that we have here, all I need to do is to call it by its name, like that. And this way, I don't actually have to um, repeat hello function over and over and over and over. This is just a simplification of this example here, but we'll get to that example in a second. Just bear with me here. So now I'm going to call this device that I designed here. Now I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to see what it's going to do for me. It's basically printing here saying hello functions. Suppose I want to have something like the name, for instance, and from the name I want to greet the person. So why don't we just do that? Put the name here inside the function, like that, and I am going to take that name and I'm going to print it here. To print it in, so instead of just saying hello function, now we can basically greet the person. Hello, whatever, the person's name here. So now anytime I want to enter a new name, I'm just gonna have to call this whole device one time, like that, and is asking me to enter the name. So if the name that we entered is Sandra, like that, is gonna say hello Sandra. So suppose now I want to greet 3 people. I'm gonna have to call this 3 times. So I'm gonna do this one more time. So the first name is Sandra, like that, and it's gonna say hello Sandra. The second call here has been used to give me the second name. So the second name was Brian, and the third name we said it was Molly, like that. So as you can see, we never had to copy these input devices. We already stashed them inside this function here, and all we needed to do was essentially calling the function by name. So what we are doing here is basically calling the function by its name, like that. All right. So now we call the function by its name, like that. So now we call the function 3 times, and that's why the function executed. But let me remind you how we got here. I'm gonna do this first, and I'm gonna get these guys, and I'm gonna uncomment those guys. So now I'm gonna remind you of what we did. Every time we wanted to print a name, we had to copy this 3 times, like that. So this is essentially the metaphor that I used. We're building the TV here every time we want to watch it. So every time we want to print a function, and we want to print a message and to say hello to somebody, we're basically creating that device as we need. But what we actually did here instead, for this device, the function here, we only created that device. We put the code here that we wanted to use, instead of repeating it 3 times or whatever number of times we want to do. We want to use to enter to have the user enter the name and then print the name. We only called it once every time we needed to do that. If we needed another name, then we call it twice. But remember, the calling the device is one thing, and constructing the device is another thing. So here is where basically constructing the device, and here we're basically calling it. But you could just say, well, what is the difference between me here calling that device 3 times and copying this code doing it 3 times? I'll tell you the same metaphor. The same metaphor here is, every time you want to watch the TV, you go construct it, or you go buy a new one, or you plug it and play it. This is exactly plug and play right here. So every time you want to watch a soccer game, you want to watch your favorite movie, you want to watch your favorite documentary, you basically plug and play. So as you can see, we did not do very much work here because the work here has been done. And, we will understand the functions much more as they become really complex. But what you see here is the simplest type of function, a function that doesn't take anything from the outside world, is self-contained, and doesn't return anything to the outside world. Everything we needed in this function is inside the function. So the function doesn't accept anything, doesn't accept any input from the outside world, like I said. In this case, it's going to be called a parameter, and it doesn't return, doesn't give me any value that I could use for another type of computation, and we'll see that later for another type of functions, and we are going to be calling this part of the function is the return value or the return type. So I hope this is a good motivation. For the next video, we're going to be talking about the different types of functions, the functions that what kind of parameters the function can take, what kind of return types, and so on and so forth. So stay tuned and enjoy the videos, and keep practicing the examples. If you have any questions, please leave me in a comment or shoot me an email. Thanks for watching.